say. My name is Natasha Delany, and I am the founder and executive director of Indigenous Projects and Events, which is a fully owned Indigenous company based here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And we are dedicated to creating spaces where Indigenous knowledge keepers, Indigenous knowledge, leadership, and entrepreneurship can thrive. Our work includes corporate event planning, the Indigi-Queer Life Skills Program, and our Speakers and Facilitators Bureau, which connects incredible Indigenous voices to communities, organizations, and audiences across Turtle Island. The IPE Speakers Series was created to highlight our Indigenous knowledge keepers, leaders, and change makers who are making a powerful impact in their communities. Each session is an opportunity to share stories, teachings, and lived experiences that challenge perspectives, inspire change, and strengthen connections. Today, I am so honored to introduce our next guest, someone whose life and work are a testament to resilience, reclamation, and the deep power of ceremony. Alycia Two Bears is a proud member of Mistawasis Nêhiyawak First Nation, now calling Mohkinstsis home. She is a mixed-blooded Esquimalt, the daughter of Karen Hines, who is a white settler of Swedish descent, and Keith Head, who is a member of Mistawasis Nêhiyawak. A single mother to 5 children, which is amazing on its own, Alycia is an educator, a poet, a yogi, aspiring midwife. Maybe when she registered, she was an aspiring midwife. I'm excited to learn more about that. And a birth knowledge keeper whose life's work centers around reclaiming birth as ceremony. Her journey has been shaped by teachings from the late Sharon Crew Turner's Two Spirit Sweat Lodge, where she learned in a safe, female-led, spiritually nourishing community. Alycia has carried those teachings forward in her advocacy for home births, midwifery, reproductive justice, and the right for every birthing body to have access to the best possible care. She's the founder of the Moontime Bag Project, which is an initiative that provides menstrual care kits to people navigating homelessness in Calgary. And she brings powerful teachings to youth, community members, and health professionals on topics like moontime, sexuality, pregnancy, birth, and postpartum care. Her work spans across classrooms, lodges, yoga studios, and community gatherings, always grounded in the belief that when we care for our pregnant and birthing bodies, we strengthen the future of our communities. Through every role she holds, Alycia embodies the spirit of good woman medicine, weaving together traditional knowledge, ceremony, and advocacy for, to us, Indigi-Queer and non-binary ways of being. So with a warm welcome, let's clap our hands for our IPE Speakers Series guest, Alycia Two Bears. Thank you so much for being here, Alycia.
Thank you for having me. And I'm going to apologize. My internet seems to be finicky today. So if I freeze out, my apologies.
Thank you so much. So Alycia, share a little bit about your journey and how you came to embrace your role as a birth knowledge keeper and an advocate for birthing as ceremony.
It came to me from community in the way that I had 5 kids, including a set of twins, and I would get the...
Were they all birthed naturally, like in this ceremonial way?
No, none of them were ceremonial births. That came way after. So first one, hospital birth. There was no midwifery care in Alberta. It was paid out of pocket. I could not afford that. The twins came next. And I felt very you have to birth in the hospital, in the OR room, and there are no other choices. I just was not aware of that. And then the fourth kiddo came, and I thought he was going to be my last one. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do midwives were now covered in Alberta. I ended up having him at home as a not at first thought I was going to use a birthing center. And they're like, no, we don't think you'll quite make it to a birthing center. There's only one in Calgary, and it's on the opposite end of the city that I lived in. And then my fifth kiddo, again at home, same midwives, and just surrounded by everybody that I loved. So all very different births. None of them were ceremonial driven or part of, and I don't feel that I lost out on anything because I didn't miss out on something I wasn't aware of. And then, so all of those experiences and raising them got me the role of, the 4-3 2 a.m. text. Is this rash normal? Is this crying normal? Is this blood normal? Because I was a trusted non-medical professional.
Yeah, so you've described being raised in a two-spirit female-led sweat lodge community. So when did that start? When did you did you always grow up in ceremony, in community, or was that something like myself that came later on your journey?
It came later on. It wasn't until I was about 20. I was actually raised atheist by my mama. And then I started to go to university, and it was in the Red Lodge. And I was this little person who had no real sense of identity outside of I knew I was a half breed, and that was about it. Couldn't tell you I was Cree. I couldn't tell you that I was from Treaty 6, none of that stuff. So, and then you hang around these Nitsitipi Blackfoot folk who know who they are. And that's when I was like, hey, I have a calling to go to ceremony. And my really good friend Barb was like, oh, my mom runs lodge. I was like, I know your mom. I love your mom. I trust your mom. And that was how I came into Sharon's Lodge, and being surrounded by all these queer women, femme folk, butch folk, that were hilarious and compassionate and smart. After the first lodge, I was like, oh, this is another version of home. This is where I belong. And I think about my second, third lodge. I was pregnant then with my oldest. And that's when I was like, I recognize all the harms that colonialism has done on parenting, and I'm going to choose to raise my babies in ceremony and in community to disrupt any harm that could come their way and give them everything that I wasn't raised with, so that they didn't have the same identity issues when they were 20 years old.
Yeah. So I also have 5 children. So I have a stepson though, and then I birthed 4. But same, when I had my first 2 children, I had heard about midwifery. I didn't really know too much about it. But it was just the norm, and like you said, the only way was to have your children in the hospital. And then I still struggled with addiction on and off. And when I had my second last child, and I was kind of in the deep depths of my addiction, I really did want to have that experience, that midwifery experience, but there's so much vulnerability that is attached to that, right? So when I had my last child in recovery, and I ended up doing the midwife, and I ended up having an auntie, or AKA a doula, assist me. It was such a personal, and I really want to hear more about this ceremonial aspect, because I felt like that was super close to ceremony, right? I felt like that whole entire experience was super close to ceremony. I ended up having him in a birthing center, and I was in their tub, and I birthed him myself. I was like, I was squatting and like I had my hands down there, and then I like literally birthed him myself, and it was crazy. He was my biggest baby. All of my other babies were 5, 6, 7 pounds, and he was 11. He was 10 pounds. I'm 5'1". I'm 5'1",
Yeah.
so that was a big baby to have in that way.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, definitely like, and now I'm totally like, yeah, if I could have had it any other way, I wish it would have been different, but it wasn't, and that's all right. I accept it. If I were to have any other kids, which I'm not, but if I were, like, that would be the only way that I would do it, because it was such an
Right?
experience.
I think when I sort of actively, I was in education prior, and I left education when Sharon died. And I could not handle grief and motherhood and being a kindergarten teacher well. And I shifted then. It was just, what am I supposed to do with my life? Like, I thought I was going to be a teacher till I was 65 and retired. And all my one really good friend, Nadine, we were at a rodeo together, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she goes, when I think of you, I think of a midwife. I was like, well, that's because I have 5 kids and I had my last 2 at home. She was like, no, no, no. I think you would be the calm and the chaos that birth would handle. And I think I would look at you and I know that you would keep me safe and protected. And in that was what kicked off becoming a doula. Because at the time I thought going into midwifery school was closed off to me. I didn't have the grades. And then uh, so birth, taking doula training, but it was a westernized version. And I was like, okay, the reminder, I love babies and I love birth and I love this. And then everything I remembered, like Sharon teaching in the lodge or one-on-one, sort of started to come out. And I was like, oh, I need to start teaching this stuff to the youth as well. And so that like was the big shift. And then how I started to take my role then as like this birth knowledge keeper, that shifted how I tended to my clients. And people who have a relationship with ceremony is who I tend to take on, because we get the surrendering that accompanies ceremony. You are not control of anything outside of your breath. That's pretty much it. And it comes in rounds and it comes in rhythms, and there's an empowerment to surrendering. And if you're at home, we can have smudge going the whole time. We can have whoever you want. We can be feeding you. We can be singing to you. We can have silence. We can have whatever it is that you need at home, in a birthing center, in a hospital. And knowing, like, I do my best to make sure that the first words that baby hear from me is sort of like, welcome earthside little one, in whatever language they come from. And then lots of like skin to skin singing. Mamas, I sing them the West Coast Warrior song, because that was a song I was taught by Niska women up in their lands, just to remind them, like, you warriored up big time ways. And when I say like warriored up, I don't mean like it was hard to get a cup of coffee and I got out of bed and I did it. Warrior. So I don't mean like warriored up in the way like it was hard to get a cup of coffee. It was, you almost died. So when I say like mama's warriored up, I mean like it wasn't, they could have died. Warriors are willing to die for your community. It is not a lighthearted take. You can die in childbirth. A baby can die in childbirth. So that, to sing them to close off after they've birthed their placenta, like it is done. And they're holding baby. And I use that song to close off everything of birth, and then shift now into parenthood. And like chest breastfeeding, the instant nurturing, and protecting now the other realm, because I protect the realm of baby descending from the stars and keeping that all contained, which is why the other active reasoning of like reclaiming birth as ceremony, the other people around you, their ancestors can be around and they're not always great. So utilizing their ancestors to keep physical realms protected from other ancestral harms. And because then you're dealing with something else. And then in the now postpartum live world, this is why like keeping yourself warm and protected, so socks, moccasins on, warm foods, warm teas that not only promote blood growth but like warmth for digestion, internal healing, external healing, so that way we can all bond, make milk, slow down, and accept the bond that we want to hold. Like we don't hold baby, we hold families so that they can learn this new role together, because that has been so horrifically ripped from us from
Yeah.
colonization.
And
That's what we want to protect.
that's one of the biggest things that I realized like on my journey when I had my last child was like, because I grew up in foster care. I grew up away from the culture. I had no biological family growing up. When I found sobriety and found culture, like it was still hard for me to connect to people. So when I or even accept help or anything like that. So when I accepted this journey of having a doula, come every single month. And like the doula was so amazing. Like me and my husband, we were in recovery and there was a lot of resentment still there. So for me to be there, vulnerable with him, I just didn't trust him. To
Yeah.
have her there and to be able to look at her in the eye and to have her support and to have her hear me and see me and like her whole spirit was like she was different when she showed up at my house with me and Corey every single month, but the way that she showed up for me during labor and that intimacy and that trust, that complete trust of focusing on her and hearing her and then that collective support and help after the birth,
Yeah.
right? Because there is so many of us Indigenous people that don't have that
Yeah.
strong network and support, and it feels so much better that way. It feels just amazing.
Right, it is. And global wide, there's very much like the 40 days stay at home and rest. And I was like, let everybody come to your teepee, but like when you're ready. And I'm like, and bring warm food so you can eat, tidy up the house, do some laundry, do something. And I have supported families in active addiction as well. And same thing, a huge reminder, you still deserve the best care possible, right? And being very just like upfront, how do we meet all of your needs and baby's needs and keep you together? We had the last one that I was at, we had an amazing nurse who like didn't sort of like, there was no, I don't bias didn't sort of seep through. She was just very much like, okay, when do we do dosages? How do you do them? Here's how we're going to do them. How did you guys all meet? And it was because of this client, I was helping her navigate the hospital settings for something else. And the nurse, who did not appreciate how engaged I was in her life, said, you're just a doula. You're not even a medical healthcare provider. I don't need to give you any of this information. And I was like, listen, I'm the only one helping her navigate being houseless, being pregnant, needing eye surgery. I'm trying to keep her relatively housed in a hospital, yes, but I'm trying to connect her to social workers through Alberta Health Services, and you guys are not doing this. But it was in that moment, I was like, I'm going to be a midwife then. And nobody will ever be able to speak to me like this ever again. I will be the healthcare team. And that was like a huge driving force to go back to school.
Like I always say, like we should be so thankful for the people that that harm us. I know that sounds crazy, or like piss us off, if I can say
Right.
that, because those are the ones that really did that motivate us, right?
Right? I'm like, let spite be a motivator. I can use some spite and some
Yeah.
anger to
Yeah.
motivate me to protect my community some more.
And that's such a healthy way to like, respond
Mm-hmm.
to that, right? Um, so it sounded like even Shannon's or Sharon, the
Yep.
lodge holder, her death was a pivotal moment for you as well, and potentially a gift um, for that shift, that other big shift in your life where you completely transition from the education teacher system to now
Yep.
doula
Her,
wife.
yes, her death still impacts me. It shifted everything I know about the way you show up in love. Nothing is like ever guaranteed. Telling your friends that you love them all the time, because you don't know if it's the last time you're about to see them. Fully showing up in your gifts for community, in particularly for our queer community and our trans community, in love and in humor, because it's like the greatest way to make sure the next generation doesn't feel the same harms. We got to take care of the ones alive now who are seeking ceremony, who, going to lodge where gender norms are so heavily practiced. I do not feel comfortable in, and I know I don't belong there.
Yeah.
And finding lodge after her was really hard. Still haven't found one. So instead, my ceremonial partner and I, Elijah, are working on getting another lodge going because we do fully recognize that. And so all of that is in recognition to Sharon. None of this would have happened without her, without her death. These huge life transitions most likely would not have happened.
So she wasn't able to pass the lodge on to anybody?
She did,
Oh, she did.
but her child that has, well, she has like two of them that took it on.
Right.
Just they're not ready to give to
Mhm.
community the way that they need to. They still don't, they're not prepared to do that yet. So, which is fine and fair. The other gift that Sharon has always given me through ceremony is the timelines. There is no set, firm, direct timelines ever. Ceremony happens, teachings happen when it's supposed to. It might feel too short for us, it might feel too fast for us, but it happens the way that it's going to happen.
Can you tell us about the Moontime Bag project, how it started, and the impact that it's been making in our communities?
Yes, so I'm a co-creator of that, and it's almost 5 years ago now. I had done a online yoga session, and it was for a pipeline company. And I was
Was this
unaware of that.
was this during COVID?
Yep. And I have a very public stance that I am against land resource extraction that is coercive to our communities and harmful to our environments. And it felt like my ethics were being tested. So I decided to go forward with it instead of looking like another flaky Indigenous person, and did my session. It was 15 minutes long. And then I got whatever, like $385 or something for it. And I was like, I cannot keep this money. It has to go back to community. So I was looking at tiny house warriors because of kind of house and everything that they do to protect their homelands. And then my like wife at the time, she said, well, the Bear Clan here in Calgary, when it was functional, did a call out for menstrual products. And she was like, that's like birth worky, right? And I was like, yes, yes, it is. So went to Costco, bought all the things, and I was like, hey, what do you and I take for granted as housed folks? And we were like, chocolate, warm teas. So we got chocolate teas, chapsticks, little deodorants in the summertime, but hand warmers in the winter time. And we got underwear, tampons, liners, and pads, and then sage that I had harvested with Strike Anywhere matches. So we fit them all into a really large Ziploc bag and sent them off to Bear Clan. And Bear Clan was like, these were so well received that women were taking food out of their bag and putting this instead because food is a lot easier to access. And I was like, you know what? I could make this happen once a month. I could like take very little money I make additionally, and I can do this. And instead, I just made social media posts about it. And my friends ended up doing, so ally friendships made fundraisers for me. And I have not ever once had to pay $1 of my own money. And we moved from monthly to weekly. And then Bear Clan dismantled. So then it continued with Walls Down Collective here in Calgary. They're having pop shops downtown every Friday. And then those dissipated, and now they sort of do pop-ups when it's good. So then I just turned it around and said, anybody who needs menstrual products for free, housed or unhoused, you let me know. I have like IKEA shelves of products and supplies. Nick's underwear ended up donating to me, and they will donate to me anytime that I ask for underwear, period underwear. Youth do it. You say with our Moontime Musings project, they'll go buy supplies and we'll put, oh my gosh, like 350 kits together in one night. And then I just shoot those off to Walls Down, or the Table YYC will sometimes take them. And it's just existed out in the world. And I get teenagers to do the same thing in their high schools.
So, have you considered starting your own non-for-profit for this? And if that's not something that you're wanting to do, what is it that you would need, you think, to get this really going again, similarly to how you had it going with the Bear Clan initiative?
So absolutely not to not-for-profits. Not-for-profits, charity organizations, non-government organizations all keep money out of the hands of people who really need it while going into the pockets of like CEOs and managers and overhead. Like, it doesn't serve the community, actually keeps people poor while keeping housed people already housed and prosperous. So I'm not interested in propping up any of those organizations. And then to keep it going, honestly, I just need extra hands. And I have volunteers and people who regularly or like would be like, hey, do you need help putting packages together? But between the youth at USAY, kids at different high schools around here, they help make enough kits that I often like do that 2 or 3 times a year, and that is enough to be distributed for Walls Down Collective.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I just like, if we need something, I just go, hey, I need like more underwear, and people will either Amazon me underwear or drop off whatever supplies I ask for, or shoot me money and just make a note, this is what it's for, and we go pick it up. And my needs are usually met like within a week of asks.
It's amazing. I love that so much.
Yeah.
So, tell me, I know you do a lot of work with youth, from Moontime Musings to yoga and health teachings. What is the most rewarding part of working with young people, and what advice would you give to Indigenous youth who want to walk a similar path of cultural reclamation and community service.
I love working with them. They remind me why knowledge is so important to be shared, and listening to them is so important. They're so smart. They're so passionate. They often already have the answers that we are seeking, but maybe we don't think it's a nice enough way. We don't think it's like detailed enough. Whatever our little older adult brains are dismissive of the youth, they have so many of the answers already. And my personal benefits, I guess, is that they trust me with deeply important questions about their reproductive health, or that they are willing to share the struggles that they have, maybe in a really close-knit setting with everybody. Or I get the, can I write you about this later? And I'm like, absolutely, you can. Earning the trust that my answers can help them is the greatest gift I can receive from the youth, 100%. And then watching them teach, or that my teachings become their normalized version. And I'm very explicit on how these teachings stem in a way that I don't want colonization, and particularly church impact, to have any sort of fingertips in our relationship with our own body. And dismantling like slut shaming in particular, and normalizing conversations of what like sex drive looks like in everybody, and all of it's normal. And
that is such a crazy topic though, because like going to ceremony, I've been doing ceremony. I just feel like there's so much like clash though in terms of like sex and our bodies, because um like the sexual trauma that we experienced during colonization. Yeah. So the sexual trauma that we've experienced during like residential schools, like a lot of our elders, there's so much shame there, right? And so like in terms of women and like being able to accept our bodies and to find peace with ourselves and our bodies and our sexuality, like it can be it's shamed in some ceremonial circles.
Yep, it is. And that is why I keep my circles in my ceremony the way that it is, to make sure everybody's welcome there. And I say, and very like, these are my teachings, which might be very different from your teachings. And also, all teachings are supposed to be as variable as the land that we come from. They're not supposed to be the same. And recognizing the discomfort that maybe mine have on yours. And they said, that's fine. You do the ways in which feel best and closest to your heart. And maybe I'm giving you some alternatives to think about, because the insidious ways that like Christianization is still in our lodges, so present. So very present. It's wild. So that's why I'm like, if you want to wear a skirt, you go for it. If it makes you feel strong and empowered, go for it. I'm not going to tell you can't wear a ribbon skirt or something around me, but I'm going to be like, let's critically think about some of these practices and teachings. And also the recognition that our teachings have always shifted regardless of colonization. They were not what they were 6-7 generations ago. Core pieces, yes, but we are people who are impacted by intuition and dreams and ancestors, which means we will get a dream and something will shift. It has never not been the same over and over again. And so when people are like, this is traditional, I'm like, is it? Or was it a grandparent that's holding on to something? And look at how our elders were deeply harmed by residential school. And it's still there. And we don't have to correct them, and we don't have to harm them, and we don't have to shame them. but we can go, okay. And I can also go, I'm not ever coming back to this lodge because I'm not safe here. And here's why. And you might not ever fix that. And you might shush me and splash some more water at me. And I simply will not come back.
I just feel like you're speaking the language of so many of us, especially youth, because we are in this day and age where there's so much more acceptance. There's so much more like knowledge of like other people and their individual experiences, right? Like that's what technology and the internet has done for
Yeah.
us, and we have to evolve as people. Like we have to.
Yeah.
So this next like set of Indigenous leaders, things are gonna have to shift. And it might be uncomfortable, but I'm so glad that people like you exist, that uh, create these safe places for these diverse perspectives, um, that are less fear-based and more love and acceptance-based. In terms of facilitation and speaking, if you can speak just a little bit about like what do you normally speak on, and what are your facilitations on?
Most of the time, I am hired on two-spirit perspectives in storytelling, decolonizing sex, decolonizing blood, and the history and impact of colonization on healthcare systems, pregnancy, birthing, and parenting. Those are typically what people come to me for. So I do a lot of guest speaking at university levels for nursing, social workers, midwifery, and then for youth coming in to teach about menstrual health cycles and how to navigate our reproductive health in different ways that aren't currently working for our systems. And then foods that come with that. So those are the most frequently when people think of you need a guest speaker with this. So then with yoga, I've actually stepped a lot of way back from yoga. I'm going into school now. I'm stepping back on a lot of speaking engagements because I need to focus during the school year on this. So I'll be more available in the summer times for the next 4 years. And how to empower youth, and then two-spirit identity, like at a history level, what does that look like? Why was that important? Because a lot of people from our communities, I can tell that they're trying to be and do good by our identities, but they're like, oh, two-spirit have always existed because there's always been like a female and male. And I'm like, no, that's not like, I need you to think outside of the box from even that. That is where our existence comes from. That's the point of tension. And so people within our own communities, so much homophobia, so much transphobia, so much fear, because they simply don't know. And what has been normalized to harm our communities through language in particular is just very normal.
Yeah, like most of our language was so emotional, and it was romantic, and it was energetic, and there was so many words that didn't exist, that exist today, and it creates so much more separation.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and when you think about as I've learned Nêhiyawak, and I'm still always taking the beginners class, but the more that I learn language and the stories behind our words, the more I'm like, oh, we did not hold on to this gender binary stuff at all. It did not exist within us in our communities, which meant it wasn't in our teachings and our societies. And yet we are still holding on to the translations to make it easier for English to get by. I'm like, why are we doing that? So one of my favorite language teachers, he was just like, you need to forget about translation into English. It probably doesn't exist because our cultures were not the same. And I was like, right.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here and sharing your amazing wisdom and knowledge and your magic with all of us. If you could just let us know where we can find you if we're wanting to follow you.
On Facebook, it's my name, Alycia Two Bears. Instagram, it's miss.2bears. You can find my poetry at your.moonwoman. I have a new book out, The Feast, so you can buy that through Wild Skies Press as well if you want to support that endeavor. And those, I have a website, goodwomanmedicine.ca. And then email, you can contact with me, goodwomanmedicine@gmail.com.
Thank you so much. And we'll have all of this information in the show notes. If you like this episode and you are wanting to learn more about Alycia, check out the show notes, hit subscribe. And again, thank you so much. We will see you all again for the next episode. Hi.
Thank you.